Hey guys, sorry that there's no big intro like there was for Cars on the Road. I just could not think of one. But I am going to start this video with saying that video that I teased at the end of the Cars on the Road review, saying everything that will be reviewed in the series, is cancelled. And it's actually been moved to something else. So I was going to do it as a video, but then YouTube, out of the blue, decided to just give many channels the community tab that don't have 500, despite the fact you needed 500 in the past, which makes a load of sense. Now you could just use community tabs if you have the advanced features enabled. Yeah, it's kind of stupid. Well, either way, I pretty much announced everything there, from Pixar movies, Thomas and Friends, MLP, pretty much everything there. Either way, welcome to the newest installment of Yoshi Reviews. As if you couldn't read the title, this time we are going to be reviewing the 2013 MLP movie, E.G. The reason I'm not calling it by its full name is because I actually don't like saying the full name, so I'm just going to call it E.G., if that's okay. Now, I would explain my history lesson with this, but I'm not going to be boring and explain my history lesson. I'm going to tell the film's history lesson.
What are you talking about?
So basically, the reason this movie was made was because there was a new toy line coming out that year, and you know the direction, make a feature-length movie about it. Honestly, I'm not even going to try and deny this movie wasn't made for money, because it was. Then at the same time, I've been like a Thomas fan for all my life, so kind of used to it. The movie was then released on June 16th, 2013. You know, saying that date makes me feel old. Well, probably because Cars 3 came out on the same date 4 years later, who knows? Now, how I'm going to review this is going to be different from when I reviewed Cars on the Road. There's a difference between reviewing 9 7-minute episodes and a 72-minute long movie. So I'm going to do things differently this time around. I'll start with the big plot of the movie, then I'll go into the characters and other things. So as I just said, we're going to start with the plot. Following the events of the Season 3 finale, Twilight and her friends are on Twilight's first Princess Summit. I have no idea what that means, and it's never dropped up on again. However, the night before it happens, somebody called Sunset Shimmer goes,
Hippity hope, your crown is now my property.
Soon, Twilight is set on a mission to basically get the crown back, and Spike goes along just because we gotta have him in the movie somehow. The others have variants, he doesn't yet, so get your ass over there, mate. Then they see each other's variants of the universe, and Twilight reacts appropriately. Then she finds out the hard way that you can't do a lot of shit you do there, such as walking on 4 feet and using magic. Trust me, I wish we could use magic in the real world. Then we wouldn't have to deal with dickheads 24/7. Okay, we'll still deal with dickheads 24/7, but still. However, it's soon revealed that Sunset no longer has the crown. That was because Fluttershy was waiting on the other end with animal posters. And after finding this out, Sunset just starts bullying frickin' Fluttershy. Seeing all this from behind the corner, Twilight basically just goes stop before, typical villain, Sunset tells her to basically get fucked. So we seem pretty set for the movie to end, right? Pretty early on, but we've basically got a character out the way, and now we're essentially bound for glory, right? Well, there's one teeny tiny problem with that. Fluttershy gave the crown as a part of a competition. So effectively now, she's trying to pull a finger out of her ass and try and win a competition. Yeah, I actually feel kind of bad for her because, imagine trying to pull a finger out of your ass and win a competition at the same time. It's not easy. While there, she basically meets the equivalent of everyone else, Pinky, AJ, Rarity, I'm British, so we pronounce the T. And as it turns out, they hate each other. They legit, flat out, I'm pretty sure if this wasn't a kid's movie, they'll probably try and kill each other, as a matter of fact. The whole hate arc kind of comes to a head And it's soon revealed that basically it's not anyone's fault. It was all just Sunset Shimmer. Yeah. I don't like it when villains come into a plot like this. They just don't fit in a friendship / arc. However, while all this is going down, Sunset Shimmer basically tries to sabotage Twilight's attempts to win. Yeah, definitely not like a certain green race car from a movie which I love. This all comes to a head in the climax when Sunset probably executes one of the dumbest plans I've ever seen. First up, she basically just kidnaps Spike for no reason whatsoever, probably to get her attention. And then she attempts to destroy the portal while it's open. You do realize that the moment you swing the hammer, it's gonna go through the portal. You do realize that, right? She doesn't go ahead with this and basically just drops the hammer. And after this, basically everyone just says, yeah, you're good. Well done, Twilight. You're a good girl. And this basically just pisses off Sunset to the absolute extreme. To the point where she literally just rugby tackles Twilight. And then after a long intense battle, she basically just snatches it after she throws it. And no one attempts to stop her from putting it on. And then basically just becoming too overpowered. This just gets confusing as Twilight says you're not getting the crown, but yet no one attempts to stop her when she puts it on. Like, you can't just stop a car crash by just driving straight on. You actually have to intervene. Why did no one intervene? This transforms Sunset into a she-demon, where her full plan of taking over Equestria can happen. Save your gripes for the plan when we get to the gripes area, Yoshi. With everything going her way, everything's about to happen. Except for one thing. Twilight's in our way. So, what do you do when somebody is in your way and ruining your evil plans? How about trying to murder them with a fireball? Because that's what Sunset does. Then the fight gets cheesed Pokemon style, and Sunset gets her ass kicked in. Nothing to see here. And she's out of here. So what happens now? The villains gotten their ass kicked in, and the heroes have essentially won. So what do we do now? Well, why not throw a 180 on the villain?
Excuse me?
Yeah, and we're now approaching a part of the movie which I think seriously needs a rework. So Sunset's now back to her regular form, and somehow she's in tears? Why? Well, that's all because of everything that's happened.
And all this happened because...
I didn't know there was another way.
What a load of old shit!
Yeah, that is a really thin excuse to pull an entire 180 for. And it's also very rushed. It's dead at the end. I'll explain more about this when I talk about the characters. So Twilight gets her crown back, and after a short dance, she and Spike piss off back home. So, that's the story. My thoughts on it? It's meh. Like, I think it could be done way better, but also at the same time, I don't think it's 100% bad. Now, before we jump into things like characters and songs for the movie, here are just some personal gripes I have with it, and how I would personally improve them. If there was one major problem with the movie, is that I think the pacing is way off. Some parts of the movie just add nothing and drag on and on, meaning the parts which actually do something, they just fly by and not actually be that important. I feel like an extra 20-ish minutes would have helped with the movie's pacing. Have some parts actually drag on for a bit longer, the parts which actually matter, and maybe shrink down some of the parts which aren't really important, and yeah, problem fixed. The animation is something I'm really 50-50 on. Like, I know I wasn't expecting Cars level animation, but the animation here does feel a little bit clunky. I get that this was the first, movie of this genre and they were getting used to the models, and it kinda shows. But then at the same time, I can't really bring myself to hate this art style. I do find it pretty cute and cool. The score as well is a little bit meh. Again, I wasn't expecting anything big, but I was kind of underwhelmed by some of the soundtrack. It didn't feel very big or cinematic. And given that the fact that this was released in cinemas/theaters, whatever the hell you want to call it, it does kind of detract a bit from the film. Excluding the pacing issue, these nitpicks I have, I can live with. But this last one I have would need a total rewrite to refix. Refix? Is that even a word? This might just be a me problem, but the B plots just don't add very much for me. I don't like the whole friendship one, but then at the same time, that's more because the villain gets dragged into it, and I feel like it works best without one. But the whole Sunset sabotage thing also doesn't really go anywhere. They get resolved as quickly as they go on screen. I mean, fuck, the whole video thing had no resolution. If you actually bothered to do something, if you had actually put your brain into it, you might have actually come up with a decent way to finish it. So that was two minor things and two pretty big major things all at once. I know I said I would talk about the whole plan thing in the gripes area, but I'm actually going to save that for the characters. Now, speaking of the characters, let's go there next. Now, I'm not going to go over all characters, because if I did, we'd be here until next Christmas. What I'm instead going to do is I'm just going to talk about the main characters and some side characters. Now, naturally, we're going to start with the main, because, you know, how do you review characters without starting with the main character? I feel like she's okay here. Not great, but I wouldn't call her bad. She's perfectly smack in the middle for me. However, I do want to point out that she is a terrible liar. Like, all the stuff she does in this movie, she would not get away with in real life. She would have been caught the second she tried bullshitting her way out. My next point of her kind of breaks the plot, but I feel like she's a bit dumb here. Like, if she just said, you know, what she said later on in the movie, it would probably be over in like 2 seconds. Other than that gripe, I think she's an okay main, even if she does get pretty annoying after a while. Then you have Fluttershy, who I think is a good character. If there is one word I could describe this character with, it is relatable. I have had so many times where I have been shoved around by someone. I went sarcastic back, and they got a bloody shitty on with me. And that is why I don't like school. It's full of a bunch of Anyway, back to Fluttershy. What else can I say about her? I feel like she's just a fun character. And I think a character who probably could have been used a lot more in the movie than what she was used in. Same with the other ones. Because they're mainly the focus of the B plot, it doesn't really feel like they do a lot in my opinion. But hey, you win some, you lose some. Anyway, I better wrap up my thoughts before I start rambling. Fluttershy is a fun character. Moving on. Up next is the party maniac, Pinkie Pie. If Fluttershy was the quiet one, then Pinkie's the loud one. She's the comic relief of this movie. And she genuinely made me laugh on more than one occasion. She's essentially the Mater of this. A character who's funny, but not to the point of where she gets annoying. She writes that line for me. I feel like out of the main characters, Pinkie definitely gets the most laughs out of me. She's so funny, especially that sidekick part. That was bloody great. Anyway, I should probably stop here. She is a funny character. At least for me. I understand if she's annoying to someone else. Up next is AJ, short for Applejack. I'm 50-50 with her. Not because I don't like the character, but it's more of wrong character in the wrong plot. What do I mean by this? Obviously, she's lumped in with the whole hate thing, but it kind of doesn't work for me. Like a whole gimmick No, I said gimmick again. What the fuck is wrong with me? Her whole thing is about being honest, but it's not really shown here. It is shown afterwards, but before the arc concludes, it's like, so why? I really don't get it. Ignoring that, she's fine. Not the best character in the movie, but not the worst. I'll definitely rank her above Twilight, but below Pinky in my opinion. Up next is Rarity, and she's meh. If I had to pick a least favorite out of the main 6 characters, then it would be her. Not saying that she's bad though. She's not annoying at the very least. I'll say that. It never got to a point where I just wanted her to shut up. However, she's at the bottom for me because she just doesn't really do much. And her whole thing just doesn't really click for me. That it can for other people, but it just doesn't fit with me personally. The final main character in this group of 6 is Rainbow Dash. She doesn't do much, she's only really in the movie for like the last half hour. And because of that, her scenes feel way too rushed, and she felt like just like a last minute inclusion. Honestly, Rainbow in the last half hour here really gives me vibes to Cruz Ramirez in the final episode of Cars on the Road. Not saying they're both bad, but they just feel extremely rushed, especially Cruz. She basically had no introduction, but I'm going to save that for a new section which I'll be introducing in this review. If the movie was extended to like an extra half hour, then I feel like Rainbow would definitely have benefited the most. Seeing as she only has like one scene and then they shoved into the main cast. Like, don't do this. Rainbow is fine here. She's definitely one of the characters who most improves in the sequels. And speaking of bad characters, that brings me on to, and as much as I really don't want to talk about her, the villain. I really do not like Sunset Shimmer in this movie anyway. She's a completely just, how do I put this delicately, shit at being a villain. Is she a villain or just a stereotypical arsehole? Like, try and separate Sunset Shimmer from someone like Jackson Storm. I'll give you 5 seconds. Time's up. If you said something, you're a f***ing liar. What? And this isn't even touching the big plan she has. It is a fucking mess. In fact, let's go through and rip this plan to shreds. So she went through hell and back to get the crown, and when she puts it on, she basically uses it to control others and take over the world of ponies. Like, it would have just made more sense if you just stayed in the world of ponies. It's not that hard if you had more than 2 brain cells that might have clocked on, but then at the same time the story wouldn't happen, so that's convenience number 1. I also realistically don't think that the fake out would have actually worked. Even if she did just attempt swinging it, it'll just go straight through like I just said prior. She also spends way too much time explaining her plan. I mean, if I was her, I'd probably just do it straight away, not even tell anyone. Finally, she was caught back in the world of ponies. So, if she did go back there, she would have probably just got attacked by everyone. And this is me ignoring the big factor in the room. She has a redemption arc in the last 5 minutes. Why? You can't do a character arc that big in that amount of time. You just can't do it, no matter how talented of a writer you are. This is not me saying that you can't do a character shift this large though, because Cars sure as hell did it with Lightning McQueen, but they used the runtime of the movie to its advantage. So basically, what I'm saying is, have a long runtime for a character arc this large. Got it? Oh, who am I kidding? This movie's 10 years old, no one's gonna fucking listen to me. And with that slight downgrade, we are done with the characters. I know I said I was gonna do some side characters, but if I'm being brutally honest, I really cannot be bothered to go through them. So if you want to hear my thoughts on them, that's what the comments are for. And to wrap up this review, aside from my new segment, we're going to talk about songs. I'm going to keep this section brief, but I do really like the songs in this movie. The ones I like the most are the song played during the cafeteria, this part, and This Is Our Big Night. Those are my two favorites from this movie. If I had to pick two which I didn't like, or were the worst, they would have to be the opening thing and Strange New World. I more put Strange New World on there because I've not listened to it in a long time. It's not on Spotify for some bizarre reason. And if I had to pick a third least favorite, it would probably be A Friend for Life. Meaning that if there was a third favorite, it would be Time to Come Together. Okay, for my final part of the review, I want to compare this to something. What is that something? Cars on the Road. This is my new section which I'll be introducing from this review onwards, where I'll be taking my previous project and comparing it to the one I'm reviewing now. And in this section, I'm going to talk about the biggest pros and the biggest cons. For this review, I'm only going to do one because I'm going to really find one across the two of them. But for some reviews, this section will be longer. My absolute biggest problem with the both of them is that they both have a tendency to forget their B-plots. I know I've already addressed my problems with the easy ones here, so I'm instead just going to focus on the Cars on the Road ones. Yeah, this is something I really should have brought up when I was doing that review. This really annoys me with the Road Rumbles episode, as it basically just comes out of nowhere. Very much like Cruise in the final episode, this whole thing just comes up out of nowhere and just basically serves no role other than driving the story forwards. That's it. If there was one pro I could give both of them, it's their portrayal of the characters. Excluding the B-plots where they want to strangle each other, then they're actually pretty good and true to their original characters, and even expands on some of them. This is more so true for Cars on the Road than E.G. And that's it. Now we can finally reach that conclusion. So what do I think of this movie, E.G.? I think this is a okay movie. It's not the best in its trilogy. In fact, I would probably say it's the worst. But it's still at least okay. It doesn't get to a point where I want to turn off. Well, I mean, except for Sunset Shimmer. She can go fuck herself in this movie. But do I recommend this? This is a tough one, as I would say no if this wasn't the starting point and wasn't directly followed in the sequel. But because of that, I'm gonna say yes, but solely for a starting point. Holy shit, this one took forever to get out. I suffered multiple phases where I just did not want to finish this. I was very close to just throwing it in the bin. However, I figured with all the footage I gained for it, it would pretty much be rude to let it go to waste. So I basically finished the review. I was very close to moving on, but I stuck through. And that's a sign for anything. After all, show determination, boys. And girls. I'm not sexist. So, what's next? Well, we've covered talking cars and talking ponies. So next time, we're going to complete the triad and talk about talking engines. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be reviewing one of the specials. Which special? Well, you'll have to wait and see. So until then, or the next video, I've been Yoshi. You've been watching Yoshi Reviews, and until the next one, have a good one.
what you are to me.